February 2000, Geoff wrecks at Daytona in the truck race. And I know what my reaction was. I can't even imagine what it must have been like for a family member.
I was standing on the top of my motorhome watching the truck race, and I could not see the tri-oval.
Yeah.
I could see the trucks come off of 4, and I could see them go down the short chute into 1. Well, I saw them come off of 4 in a pack. They were running in a pack all day, and then I heard the wreck and didn't see him come out the other end. I got down off the motorhome, and my father-in-law was sitting outside my motorhome watching on TV. He said, "Brett, it's bad." And I could tell with my father-in-law's it was bad. So I immediately went to the infield care center. They let me in. And at the time, they had a camera that would just focus in on the wreck so they could see it. And I'm standing there, and they're working, and they get him out and get him on the stretcher. And he reaches up. I don't know if you remember, and he adjusts his oxygen mask. I slugged the doctor. I said, "Look at that. The son of a gun's still alive." Wow. I mean, the weight of the world fell off of me the moment I saw him move that oxygen mask.
Yeah.
And they said they're going to transport him right to the hospital. So I went over to Halifax, and I got thrown out of the emergency room 3 times. I kept sneaking in. They didn't want me to go in there, so I'd find another way to get in so I could just make sure, I could see him. And
not even as a family member?
No, not in where they were working on him.
Okay, yeah.
Not in the actual
Yeah.
ICU. A miracle.
Oh.
Nothing short of a miracle that a human survived that. That's all you can say. Through his recovery, and I want to say this, the first time I went in, he was in his room, and I thought he was in great shape. For what he just went through, he was in great shape. He had a broken wrist and few little burns and, sore muscles, and all he kept saying is how many people were hurt in the grandstands. That's all he was worried about.
No kidding. Wow.
How many people? And before he left Halifax, he went and met with everybody that was in that hospital with him. He went and talked to them all. I mean,
I did not know that.
Early in Geoff's career, 1969 or 70, he was involved in an accident. He was a rookie in the modified series, and he was involved in an accident at Shangri-La Speedway. It was a heat race. A car spun out in front of him. He hit the outside wall right in front of the grandstands. The 2 cars went in the wall. And the 3rd car went up over Geoff's car and went in the grandstands and killed 3 people.
I did not know
Geoff
that.
nearly quit racing over that.
Oh, my goodness. No, I didn't know that.
And
wow.
he darn near quit. There almost was not a racing career for Geoff Bodine, because he heard the people screaming and saw him, and it tore him up. So all he could think of was that all over again,
Brett, also that year, you became a trailblazer in NASCAR when you became one of the first, if not the first, to wear a Hans device.
Yep.
And you and I talked for a book that I was doing, and you told me that you first came across the folks from Hans during a test at Indy.
Yes,
Is that
right.
correct?
That's
Okay.
correct, yep. A gentleman that I had met when I was at Bernstein's, he worked for Ernie Elliott, and he now was working for Hans, and he was at the test at Indy. It was a multi-car test. At that time, the testing rules, they had test days. And I had seen him, it was a 3-day test. The second day of the test, we talked, and he showed me the device, and I was impressed. I had heard about something a long time ago that was this big awkward thing, and I think Kyle ran it, or tried to run it once, this big old, but it just did. It was a little impractical on its size. So I asked him, "How you doing with that?" He said, "I can't get anybody to even talk to me about it." And we had gone through some bad times. We lost some of our colleagues. And race car drivers are funny. They don't want to talk about that stuff. And they want to keep doing what they're doing because that's what got them there. I want the seat the same. I want the same belts. Because if I'm standing here today okay, it must have been okay because I survived what I've been through. But the one thing that was happening in our sport, we were going a lot faster. Every year we were going faster and faster. Technology was really creeping in. Cars were getting way better. Tires were getting way better. The radial tire brought speed. Engine development brought speed. Aerodynamics brought speed. And we were going faster and faster. And we were hitting the wall harder. And we were needing some driver safety enhancements. We talked about it. I said, come on over tomorrow morning. The third day of practice, I'm going to narrow this down to one car, and we'll make the adjustments to this other car. So the last day, he gave me a setup. I put it on, I got in the car, and we had to cut my headrest off and move it. And so I told the guy, I said, get that car ready. I want to make about 10-lap run in that. I said, nothing special, just put some tires on it, and I'm going to go out. I want to try this thing out. I went out and I ran 10 laps with it. You know, I saw the engineering benefit of what it was going to do for you in a wreck, and I called the shop. We were going to Pocono the next race. I said, here's what you got to do. That Pocono car, cut the headrest off, offset it 3 inches, weld it back on, brace it up. They said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to run the Hans device at Pocono. Well, I showed up at Pocono with it, and I got made fun of.
I bet.
A couple guys made fun of me. Dale was one of them. And he said, what are you, some kind of pussy? What do you need that thing for? You can't see with that. You can't turn your head. I said, Dale, we all need to look into this. This is really, really a good safety item.
Along with Dale, how much pushback did you get from other drivers?
Well, same thing. Wanted to know what it was, and a lot of guys didn't want to look at it.
Right.
But two guys did. Matt Kenseth and Dale Jarrett. Both of them come over and wanted to understand it, and they came with an open mind. And next February, when we lost Dale, there was 6 of us in that race wearing it, and Matt Kenseth and Dale Jarrett were. And I want to think I helped convince them that they needed to wear it.
What was your reaction when Dale said what he said to you?
That's the intimidator. That's the tough guy coming out. He wasn't ever going to come to you and look for information or help with anything. He was going to make his own mind up. And, I came from a different world. I came from a world where, excuse me, I'd stand at the driver's meeting at the Spring Sizzler at Stafford. Big modified race of the year, first one of the year. You know, there'd be 80 of us standing there at that driver's meeting, and you'd look around and say, I wonder what 1 or 2, 3 of us aren't going to be here next year. That was the world I came from.
Yeah. Wow.
We were looking for ways to make things safer in the modifieds because we were going way fast on little bitty racetracks. So I was a little bit more open to safety enhancements. You know, the first Cup car I ever drove was for Cale Yarborough. I tested it. Talladega. I was earmarked to be Cale's replacement until I got the Bud Moore ride.
Wow. Okay.
And I tested a car with a piece of aluminum on the right-hand part of the seat and nothing on the left. And I ran 202 miles an hour around Talladega in that seat. And I came from a world where, man, you wrapped, the modified seats were wrapped around you. We wore head tie-downs that went under our arms. And here I am running 200-plus miles an hour, bouncing up and down in a bus seat. And I was like, we got to do better than this. And, you know, I commend my brother Geoff. He's the one that brought that seat technology and brought it to Brian Butler. We ran fiberglass seats in our modifieds and said, just duplicate this into aluminum for me. And that's how Butler Built got started. Geoff showed him how to build a seat that we were used to running. And our seats came from the sports car world originally. So I get off track, but
Oh,
No, that's good.
and
That's fine.
I
That's
want to say I'm
perfectly fine.
very proud that I was the first to wear it in competition in a cup race, the
You
Heinz
should be.
device, and to what it meant to the world of motorsports. The fact that I took that step that day, eventually it would have come. It didn't come only because of me, but I kept the ball rolling for it.
With that being said, you were still driving your own stuff. How difficult was it at that point to keep up out on the racetrack with everything that you were having to deal with off the racetrack and having to chase sponsorship and do everything that you had to do as an owner? How difficult was that time?
Extremely difficult. I should have listened to Ricky Rudd and Bill Elliott when they tried to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
I could never land that sponsorship that afforded me a proper PR staff, a proper marketing department, a proper engineering department. I was trying to be all of them. I was trying to help engineer the car. I was trying to help find the sponsorships. I would do the sponsorship proposals. It was difficult, very difficult. But this is my love. This is my life. It always has been and always will be. And I didn't know anything but to just keep working hard and try to make it better.
June 2003, you get word that Hooters is not going to be back as your sponsor for the next year. And then you are involved in a crash during the final practice session at Michigan that leaves you pretty banged up.
In a bad way. Yeah, it left me in a bad way.
You never drove again after that.
Nope.
Was that because the business had just gotten too difficult? Was it because of the injuries, or maybe a combination of the two and something else?
So I did try to drive again after I recovered.
Richmond?
No, I tried to drive at Pocono for Larry McClure, and we missed the show. And I kept my team together long enough to go back to Indy. I wanted to run Indy again. A little tidbit about the pride of Indy for my race team was our little race team held the track record there for 2 years in speed. We didn't sit on the pole.
Yeah.
We did it in second round qualifying.
Yeah.
Ricky Rudd sat on the pole with a track record, and I came back the next day and broke his record on second day qualifying. So proud of that for our little race team because, Indy, everybody had their best stuff. And if you can beat everybody with their best stuff, that's a yeoman's
Exactly
job
right.
right there, So, wrecked at Michigan. Severe concussion. Knocked out a bunch of teeth. Broke my shoulder. Ribs. And I was in a bad way. And I knew Hooters. That was actually be the last race Hooters was a sponsor.
Right.
And I could have called it quits that weekend and said, screw Hooters. We're not. They haven't been too friendly to us. I'm not going to be friendly to them. But I said, no. I'm going to hold up my end of the deal. Flew Geoff up. He started the race in the backup car with no practice. And we represented Hooters the best we could in that race, our final race with them. He drove that thing from last all the way to 13th, and I was in the motorhome. I had a radio. I was laid up, man. I was in bad shape. And the deal with the guys was we're going to run until we run out of tires because you have to buy so many tires to practice and qualify.
Right.
So you run until you're out of tires. And Mike Hillman sent somebody back to me and said, "Did you see how good we're running? We got to keep going." I said, "No, we're done."
Yeah.
So when we were out of tires, we were done. Geoff did a great job, man. He came up and drove that thing like
All
a champ.
of this, and I hope I'm not stepping out of bounds here, but all of this took a toll on your personal life as well,
Oh yeah, it did,
and
Steve.
your personal finances.
Yeah, we were going through at the time of that Michigan wreck. We were going through a divorce, and personally, things were tough. You know, had a lot going on. When we didn't make the Indy race, and I had to go home and tell the short staff we had left that we were done, I was living in my bus in the shop, and the next week the bank came and took the bus, and the bank put a lock on the race shop, and I had to borrow $1,000 from my brothers to get an apartment. That's how low I was. Had no furniture. I had a TV sitting on a cardboard box and a long chair, and I was sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag. So
I remember you got past that, you and I. Remember that trip we took to Fayetteville?
yes,
And we did a lot of talking on the way
Yep.
back, and things were better.
oh
Things
yeah,
were rolling for you pretty good about
Yep.
that, huh?
yep.
Yeah.
I was blessed. Carolyn Carrier was my publicist,
Yeah.
and when we went to the abbreviated schedule that year 2003, I said, Carolyn, I got to make some money somehow. So she got a relationship with a car show company, and I would go to the car shows and sign autographs. And so I went to, she booked me at, I was still doing appearances for Hooters, but she booked me at a car show in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada.
Listen to this.
So I had to go to Phoenix, Arizona for a Hooters grand opening, and I did that on Friday night. Took the red eye back to Charlotte Friday night, went out in the parking lot, changed suitcases because from Phoenix, Arizona to Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, pretty drastic temperature change, climate change. Flew to Moncton through Toronto and had to do a car show there that evening, Saturday evening. So the province of New Brunswick is bilingual, so there's a lot of French-speaking people. So at the car show, the gentleman that put the show on had one of his employees at his clothing store in the mall sat next to me to be interpret for the French, so I could communicate and get it right. Well, that nice lady is the mother of our twins 16 years later.
Attaboy.
Right. That's right.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
That's how we met.
Wow.
It was, fantastic. It was meant to be.
How did you've told me this story?
Excuse me.
That's all right. But how did it come about that you went to work for NASCAR?
So when 2004 rolled around, Brett Bodine still wasn't sold that he was done driving. I called, financialized in a bad way. I called Mike Helton and said, Mike, is there any way you could comp me a credential and a hard card for the 2004 season? I said, if I get a job, I'll pay you back, but, I need to get to Daytona. So I loaded up my vehicle, and I went to Daytona with my helmet and all my gear, and you never know, right? If you're not there, you're forgotten about, and if you're not there, you can't fill in if someone needs you. So I got down there and just kind of hanging around the garage area, and Mike and I talked and said, what are you going to do? I said, well, Mike, I don't know. I said, I talked to Doc Petty after my accident. And he said smart money would be not to get another concussion. We had kind of narrowed it down that I'd had over 12 in my entire career, and it was probably not a good thing, but I'd made a living driving a race car since I was 16. I really didn't know what else I could do, So the day went on, and he hunted me down again and said, hey, Bill and I'd like to talk to you. Can you be over at Bill's office tomorrow morning? I said, sure. Yeah, I'll come over. Went over there, and they said, we're building this new car tomorrow, and you've got a lot of building experience, fabrication experience. You got a lot of just solid race experience. We really need a test driver for it. How would you like to come work for the company? Oh, wow. I never saw that one coming. So I said, can you give me a month? This is a big decision. Can you wait on me a month? And I'll give you. He said, okay. So a month went by, and Mike called me and said, meet me at the R&D center. Gary and I'd like to talk to you if you're still interested. And obviously I was, and I had nothing going on. So went over there, and they made me an offer, and I accepted.
Now, was pace car driver at the time, or were you the
No.
safety?
Yeah, that wasn't on the table at the time.
Okay.
Buster was doing it, and
Right.
they had no issues with it. But that came later on, and said, "Hey, you might as well start doing that." I was really hired. Kind of. They made a title up,
The safety?
cost research.
Okay.
Try to help with the cost,
Yeah, you went
cut
to
costs.
teams,
Because
various teams.
I went to teams, talked to owners, and talked to them about what their concerns were and budgeting and stuff. I even did that a little bit for Jim France over at IMSA. I went to the IMSA teams and talked to those owners, and I just would put together, a presentation so they could look at it and make decisions. The rules makers could make decisions. And Gary and I had been great friends for years, so it was a no-brainer for me to go to work for Gary.
Right.
So you eventually did become the pace car driver, and I'm an aspiring pace car driver myself.
Okay.
So what kind of advice would you have for somebody looking to get into that line of work?
So, today's a little different because they're out there by themselves with the COVID thing. There's not a passenger, so they're doing it on their own. When I did it, we had two people. Buster would sit on the right-hand side, and he would control the lights, and he would talk to the series director on his radio, and I would drive the pace car and advise the race director, who I always worked with was David Hoots, of track conditions and what needed to be done to get the track in order. And people always ask me, a little different than what you did, how do you become a pace car driver? And I said, well, racing the Cup Series for 15 years. That's a pretty good start.
Okay. So, I just learned today, you're still working for NASCAR.
Yes, yeah. Proudly still working.
What are you doing?
So I've moved out of the competition, I moved out of the R&D side. Very proud of the work I was part of over there. I had a great team to work with, great engineers. I'm a 2-year engineer. I'm a half engineer, I guess. I don't know what you call it. Anyways, I have a 2-year degree in engineering. But I had a great group of people I worked with. I think we accomplished a lot of good things. A couple main things was the spec engine for the Touring Series. I feel that engine really saved those series. They were struggling with engine cost in the modifieds in the K&N Series, which is now the ARCA Series. That spec engine really helped those team owners, and modified car counts are fantastic now. The series is doing well. And then one of the other big projects, along with the car tomorrow, and I'm very proud of that. And that was really our first project. I did all the NASCAR driving testing for that. We tested numerous racetracks: Talladega, Bristol, Martinsville, Richmond, Daytona. I mean, we tested a lot of places: Atlanta, Charlotte, with that car, and got it to where it is today. And I feel that the engineering and the design of that car has saved drivers from injury. There's no question. When you look at the Michael McDowell wreck, that Texas, that he got up and walked away from that. That car was very much needed for the same reason the Hans device was needed. We were going way faster and hitting walls a lot harder. One of the other projects that I'm very proud of was the composite body for the Xfinity Series. I headed that project up and had a great staff, worked with 5-Star, and he brought that to the teams and the racetrack, and I think it's doing a very good job for them. So in the R&D side, proud of the work, my time there. I'm now in the competition department, and I still do and have done since I came with the company I chair the committee that does the driver approvals for all of our series. So if you're an aspiring driver wanting to get into the modified series, you send a resume to me, our committee reviews it, we determine where you can go race. Then all the paths all the way along, you continue to get reviewed and upgraded, whether it's bigger tracks or higher series, until you race the Daytona 500 someday. Then you're off our radar screen, and there's new ones coming along. And we have this pipeline going all the time, and we review drivers constantly.
So this Jimmy Johnson kid, you think he's going to work out?
I think he's going to do okay. Yeah, I think he's going to be pretty good. You know, some of the drivers that have gone through the entire system with me is the chairperson, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott.
Wow.
It's been fun to watch these kids and interact with them early in their career and their parents. And from Joey being only allowed to run half miles on the K&N to Cup champion.
Wow.
And I also, this year, kind of supervise a group of officials out of the Charlotte office. We assist in the pit road officiating in a remote location at Charlotte. They still have the primary location at the racetrack in the technology center, the trailer that travels around. And there's a group that pit road officiate there, and there's a group of us that pit road officiate out of Charlotte. And that program's been fun to get started and get it going, and it continues to grow. And it's been a lot of fun to oversee that.
Brett, you have had a lifetime's worth of perspective in a lot of different areas. Family relationships, racing, professional, personal, whatever. But you told us before we started recording about your wife. How do you put that into perspective with everything going on?
Well, yeah, it is. It's a challenge. My wife, Kathy, 4 years ago got diagnosed with leukemia. It's a survivable type of leukemia. It's a challenge for our family. It's thank God for good insurance at NASCAR. They have a wonderful program, but it's life. You don't have to look very far to see someone that has it way worse than you do. And if we're blessed that she got the type of leukemia that's survivable and treatable. She'll never be without it. She'll always have it, but it's very manageable and treatable, and hopefully it will continue to be that way. And she has the same type Rick Hendrick has. And, Rick's doing well with his. We've compared notes quite a bit. In the type leukemia medicine that Rick takes doesn't work for my wife, and the type that my wife takes doesn't work for Rick. So people are different and have different strains of the leukemia, and the chemo treatments, there's a lot of them, and hopefully we'll always have a type chemo that will keep her leukemia manageable. But no, we're blessed. It is what it is. We can manage it.